In Vermont's complicated education governance structure, boards and board chairs oversee school districts and supervisory unions. This video gives you an overview of your roles and responsibilities as a board chair. You have 5 key roles. Ensure the board plays its proper role and performs its essential work. Develop a strong board team. Build a great working relationship with your superintendent. Make sure meetings are organized and productive, and advance lawful and ethical operations. Let's break these down and discuss effective practices for each of these critical tasks. In order to be the facilitator of the board's work, it's important to understand the role and essential work of the school board. The board is the community's trustee and provides strong oversight of public education by ensuring a high-quality education for all students, a good return on investment for the public, and that the system operates effectively and ethically. The Supervisory Union Board oversees education for the region, formally employs the superintendent, and seeks greater student opportunity and operating efficiency. To fulfill its mission, a board ethically and effectively creates a vision for education, establishes policy parameters, works with the superintendent, monitors progress and assures accountability, establishes a budget and oversees finances, and fulfills other limited legal responsibilities like serving a quasi-judicial role regarding unresolved complaints and negotiating contracts. Your board is made up of people with different backgrounds and philosophies, and most new board members probably have some kind of agenda. Why else would they run? Your task is to help maximize their strengths and skills and minimize their liabilities. It's especially true on an SU board where members are representing different interests. It's a challenge that can be handled effectively with strong leadership and vision. Building relationships with each member of the board and encouraging relationships between members helps the board accomplish its work effectively. Welcoming new board members personally at the reorganization sets the tone. Consider including a team-building activity at your annual retreat. Making sure new board members get an orientation reinforces the fact that all members are an integral part of the board from the beginning. Board dynamics can be tricky. Some people jump right in while others hold back. Include all members when gathering opinions and make sure discussions stay focused and that everyone is paying attention to what others have to say. Establishing and enforcing ground rules for board meetings and decision-making is an effective way for you to manage personalities and undercurrents of personal agendas. Board work is complicated, complex, and time-consuming. You can create committees if you think they'll help accomplish the board's goals. Encourage members to participate in committees where they feel they have a lot to contribute or a strong interest to learn more. But pay attention to board and personal dynamics when finalizing who sits on which committees. Administrators are the educational experts, so encourage their leadership. A healthy and productive superintendent relationship is based on trust, so expect them to do their jobs and allow them to perform. Remember, boards assure that schools are well run. School boards and their members do not run the schools. Open communication facilitates effective and efficient operations, but things don't always go so smoothly. Make sure those challenges are addressed and that there's an accountability process in place for monitoring. Now here's a recap of the roles of key players. The Supervisory Union Board hires the superintendent. By Vermont statute, the superintendent is the chief operating officer of the supervisory union and its member districts. There's mutual accountability between the SU board and the superintendent. The board establishes goals and communicates them to the superintendent, who provides evidence of progress toward achieving the goals. At the district level, the board is charged with oversight of education, and the superintendent is still the CEO. The principal, who's responsible for the operations of the school or schools, is accountable to the superintendent, who provides evaluation and oversees professional development. The superintendent is the sole employee of the supervisory union or district. Member districts have no employees. The board oversees the superintendent by establishing goals and assuring that goals are being set for principals, but they don't set the goals for the principals. The superintendent is entitled to a regular performance review by the SU or SD board, but otherwise communication between the board chair and the superintendent is pretty informal. District boards may address issues with the superintendent, but formal attention to those issues comes from the SU board. Board meetings exist for the board to take action to accomplish its goals. It's your responsibility to make sure the meetings are productive, inclusive, and lawful. There are 5 fundamentals of productive meetings that are part of your job: effective agendas, Robert's Rules of Order, open meeting and public records laws, complex community conversations, and board consensus. Seek input from other board members and work with the administration to develop a manageable, effective agenda. Make sure the agendas align with board goals and include a reasonable number of issues. Don't try to accomplish too much. And be clear enough to reasonably inform the public of the topics to be discussed. State law requires school board meetings to be conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, which were designed to bring order to the chaos of meetings. The complete rule book is almost 700 pages, but most of it won't get used for your meetings. The Robert's Rules of Order in brief is about 200 pages and contains the information you're likely to need most. For an even more abbreviated version, there's a quick link to the VSBA's chart of motions in this toolkit. Another good resource is robertsrules.com, which has a question and answer forum and a list of frequently asked questions, and is also linked from the Board Chair Toolkit at vtvsba.org. Questions about Robert's Rules typically come up when a topic being debated is contentious. So brush up on Robert's Rules if you know there's a controversial topic on the agenda. If a question or point of order is raised, feel free to make a motion to recess in order to consult with the rules if necessary. By statute, school boards are public bodies subject to Vermont open meeting law, which means that all school board meetings, including meetings of committees and subcommittees, must be open to the public. We've got the definitive information on open meeting law from the Secretary of State's office in the Board Chair Toolkit. The public must be given notice and a reasonable opportunity to be heard. The amount and type of notice depends on the type of meeting held. Follow the guidelines in the chart in the toolkit. Questions about executive session come up a lot for school board members. There are very specific topics and circumstances that justify executive session. Take a look at the executive session guidelines for helpful tips and detailed explanations. All of your board members should have a school district email address to keep district business communications separate. Emails among board members can be subjected to an open records request. Don't put anything in writing, even in a text message, that you wouldn't want to see on the front page of the newspaper. The public can and should have a voice, but may not obstruct board deliberations. You need to make sure the public feels welcome at meetings while also making sure that the meetings stay focused on the agenda and remain productive. Lots of time, the people who want to give input to the board are your friends and neighbors. The situations and issues are rarely cut and dried, so it's really important to have a public comment policy and well-established practices. That way you're clear what to do and the public knows that there's a fair process. Policies should help guide you to be viewpoint neutral, since there can't be any content-based restrictions in a designated public forum. You may want to use a speakers list with a time limit per speaker to manage the meeting's public comment portion. Consensus is reached when all board members are willing to accept a decision as workable, even when it may not be everyone's first choice. Consensus is more about listening than talking. In facilitating board discussion of an action item, ensure differing viewpoints are heard and explored. Encourage inquiry, not argument. Look for points of similarity. Allow for differences of opinions and recognize good points on each side. Urge people to focus on interests and not positions. And explore reasons for agreement. Try to get alignment, if not full agreement. School boards are public bodies entrusted by the community to oversee the system of education for children in the district. As elected officials, school board members are expected to act with integrity and adhere to the highest ethical standards. Public confidence in the education system is driven by public faith in the competence and integrity of school board members. The VSBA strongly recommends these guidelines for effective and ethical board operations. Although citizens and school staff will assume you can exercise power in various ways, board members don't have any legal authority outside of the board. Members should not expect that they can personally direct the work of staff, nor should they try to influence operational decisions like bus routes or specific decisions about children, like choosing a particular teacher for a particular student. We've already talked about executive session, but it's really important to remember that they are sensitive and disclosure can potentially infringe upon individuals' privacy rights. Plus, board trust depends on the understanding that what is shared in executive session stays in executive session. Boards assure that schools are well run. They do not run them. This is one of the most important messages for board members, so it's worth repeating here and to your board members. Board members must avoid actual or perceived conflicts of interest. The integrity and credibility of the board depends on public trust that board members are making decisions based on what's good for students and taxpayers. If there's any question about the existence of a conflict of interest, it's best for that board member to abstain from the topic entirely. It's highly likely that a potential personal conflict will arise during the tenure of a board member, so members must be vigilant. When one member perceives a potential conflict for another board member, the integrity of the process dictates that the potential issue be raised. Board members can disagree with the outcome of a vote, but should respect the functioning of the board and the final decision. Individual members can still represent their viewpoints on the board, but they need to work within the board's process to reach a different result, rather than going outside the board to achieve their goals. To make sure these principles guide your work as a board, VSBA recommends that all members agree upon and sign a code of ethics. It's best to do this right after elections at the annual board reorganization meeting. There's a sample code of ethics linked to the toolkit for your convenience. I hope this has been a helpful review of your responsibilities as a school board chair. Take time to look through the online toolkit and the resources that are linked to it. They're all there in one place to help make your job easier. And remember, the VSBA is here to help you too.